You haven't done anything today. Not really. No gym. No big project. No emotional conversation. And yet, by mid-afternoon, you feel completely drained. Like your mind ran a marathon you never signed up for. And the strangest part? You can't even explain why. If that sounds familiar, stay with me. Because what's happening inside your head during those moments is far more complex than most people realize. And once you understand it, the way you see your own exhaustion will never be the same. Before we get into it, I want to ask you something. Think about the last time you felt mentally tired for no obvious reason. What were you actually doing? Drop it in the comments. I'll read through them, because chances are there's a pattern hiding in your answers that connects all of us. Here's the thing most people get wrong about mental fatigue. We assume tiredness is proportional to effort, that if you didn't do much, you shouldn't be tired. But the brain doesn't work like a muscle that only wears out from heavy lifting. It wears out from something far more subtle and far more constant. Your brain never fully stops working. Even right now, as you watch this, there are processes running in the background that you have no direct awareness of. Psychologists refer to some of this activity as the default mode network, a system that activates when you're not focused on anything in particular. When you're daydreaming, replaying a conversation, imagining the future, or just staring at a wall. This network is remarkably active. And here's what most people don't realize. It consumes a significant amount of mental energy, even when it feels like you're doing nothing. So when you're lying on the couch scrolling your phone, half thinking about something someone said to you last week, quietly rehearsing what you should have replied, and wondering what you should make for dinner, your brain is not resting. It's processing. It's simulating. It's working. And this is where things get interesting. Modern life has introduced something the human brain was never designed to handle at this scale: constant low-level stimulation. We move through our days in a state of perpetual partial attention. Notifications, background noise, half-read articles, fragments of conversations. None of it is intense enough to feel like work, but all of it is demanding enough to keep the brain slightly activated at all times. Researchers sometimes describe this as cognitive load, the total amount of mental effort your working memory is managing at any given moment. The tricky part is that cognitive load isn't only generated by hard tasks. It's also generated by unresolved decisions, open loops in your mind, and situations that feel ambiguous or unfinished. Every time you think, "I should respond to that message," and don't, your brain files it as an open task. Every unresolved worry, every half-made plan, everything you said you'd think about later. These stack up quietly, running in the background like dozens of apps you forgot to close, draining your battery without ever showing up on your screen. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon extensively. Research suggests that the human mind struggles to truly let go of unfinished tasks. This is sometimes called the Zeigarnik effect. The brain tends to keep returning to incomplete things, as if it's trying to resolve them, even when you're consciously thinking about something else entirely. So by the end of a day where you never finished what you started, or where you kept interrupting yourself, your brain may have been churning on those loose ends for hours, without you noticing. But here's the part most people don't realize. Attention itself is a resource, and we are living in a world that has been specifically designed to harvest it. Every app, every feed, every notification system. These are built around something your brain finds almost impossible to resist: novelty. The brain has a deep evolutionary preference for new information. In our distant past, noticing something new could mean survival. A sound in the bushes, a change in the environment. So the brain rewards attention to novelty with a small release of dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with anticipation and reward. What this means in practice is that every time you check your phone, every time you refresh a feed, your brain gets a tiny hit of that anticipation. It's not even about the content being good. It's about the possibility that something new might be there. And because the reward is unpredictable, sometimes there's something interesting, sometimes there isn't. It becomes even more compelling. Psychologists note this is similar to the mechanism behind variable reward schedules, which are among the most powerful drivers of repetitive behavior. So your brain spends the day chasing these microbursts of stimulation, not because you're addicted in any dramatic sense, but because it's responding to the environment exactly the way it was built to. The result? Your attention has been fragmented across hundreds of small interactions. Your focus never fully settled on anything deep. and your dopamine system has been cycling rapidly, surging and dipping throughout the day. That cycle is exhausting. Not in the way a hard workout is exhausting, but in a quieter, more diffuse way. A flatness, a lack of motivation, a sense that nothing sounds appealing, even the things you usually enjoy. Research suggests this kind of mental depletion can affect your emotional regulation too, making you more reactive, more irritable, less patient with yourself and with others. And what do we usually do when we feel this way? We reach for more stimulation, more scrolling, more background noise, something easy and fast. Because the brain, when depleted, gravitates toward low-effort, high-stimulation inputs. It's trying to feel something without spending the energy it doesn't have. But here's the cruel irony. That kind of stimulation doesn't restore your mental energy. It continues to fragment your attention. You feel entertained for a moment, then emptier than before. What's really happening here is that we've confused stimulation with rest. We've started treating distraction as recovery, and the brain knows the difference, even when we don't. True rest, the kind that actually restores cognitive function, tends to involve something quite different. Studies on attention restoration suggest that environments and activities that are low in demands, that allow the mind to softly wander without pressure, are far more restorative than passive consumption of stimulating content. A walk without headphones, looking out a window without a purpose, sitting somewhere quiet and letting your thoughts drift without trying to direct them. These things feel unproductive. They feel almost boring. But there's evidence that they allow the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, attention, and emotional regulation, to recover from the sustained effort it's been quietly putting in all day. This is also why sleep, when it truly works, is so regenerative. Not just because the body rests, but because the brain performs essential maintenance. Research suggests the brain's glymphatic system, a kind of waste clearance network, is significantly more active during sleep, flushing out metabolic byproducts that build up during waking hours. When sleep is poor or insufficient, that clearance doesn't happen fully, and you wake up already carrying a cognitive debt that compounds throughout the day. But here's something worth sitting with for a moment. This kind of mental tiredness, the kind that comes from fragmented attention, background processing, overstimulation, and insufficient real rest, is invisible. Nobody sees it. You can't point to it and say, "Look at what I carried today." There's no external proof of the mental labor involved in simply being a person in this world, managing uncertainty, navigating relationships, making endless small decisions, and keeping yourself together. And because it's invisible, it's easy to judge yourself for it, to tell yourself you should have more energy, that you shouldn't be this tired, that you didn't do enough to deserve this level of exhaustion. But that judgment is built on a misunderstanding of how your mind actually works. Your brain has been working, quietly, continuously, often without your permission. It has been monitoring, anticipating, processing, and maintaining. That's real work. It doesn't show up on a to-do list, but it's happening all the same. So what do you do with this? Not in the form of a prescription, because every mind is different, but as a shift in perspective. Start noticing when your attention is being pulled in directions you didn't choose. Start recognizing the difference between the kind of rest that restores and the kind that only distracts. And consider, just consider, giving your mind a few genuine moments each day where it isn't expected to perform, process, or respond to anything at all. Not because it will make you more productive, though it might, but because your mind deserves the same kind of care and patience you'd offer to anything else you depend on. If this gave you something to think about, or if it helped you understand yourself even slightly better, that means this channel is doing what it's meant to do. Subscribe to Brainflux if you want to keep exploring the hidden patterns your mind follows every single day. There's so much more to uncover, and once you start seeing these patterns, you'll find them everywhere. I'll see you in the next one.